Welcome everyone to Reboot Your Digital Strategy. I'm Steve Kwan, Instructional Technologist for the LINCS Region 1 Professional Development Center, a project of World Education. LINCS is a professional learning community for adult educators funded by OCTAE, the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, part of U.S. Department of Education. OCTAE and the Institute of Museum and Library Services have been working together to enhance the skills, employability, and quality of life of youth and adults with low skills, with a particular focus on improving digital literacy. This webinar highlights those efforts and will cover national initiatives, resources, and tools that adult educators and librarians can use to enhance their digital literacy programming and services. We are very fortunate to have as our presenters today Susan Hildreth from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, Heidi Silva-Pequila, U.S. Department of Education, Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education, Sandra Toro, also from the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and Amber Petty from Everyone On. And now I'd like to turn things over to my colleague, Ben Bruno, who will explain the interactive features you can use that might enhance your webinar experience.
Hi everyone, my name is Ben Bruno. Thanks, Steve. I just want to go over some basics about WebEx so you can have the best experience on this webinar. First of all, you'll see your name and the name of everyone else on this webinar on the right side of the screen in the participant window. You'll notice there are a lot of red microphones next to folks' names, and that means that we're all muted. So please stay muted so we can all hear the presenters well. The way to communicate or ask questions is to use the chat box. Now that chat box should be located on the bottom right under the participant window. If you don't see it, you can go to the top right and click the chat bubble to toggle that window on and off. So you can type in the empty white box to type chats to folks, but I do want to ask you to make sure you change that pull down where it says send to. It might just say send to Ben Bruno, that's my name. If you have tech questions, please send a private chat to me, but otherwise please change that to say send to everyone, and that way all presenters and everyone can see the questions that you have. This webinar is being recorded. We will also be providing a PDF file of the slides, so you don't have to worry about taking copious notes. We'll be providing all the resources and the recording afterwards. Before we get started, I'd just like to float a quick poll. You may recognize this question. This poll should appear in the bottom right side of your screen, so just pick an answer to what your program type is and hit submit. We asked this in registration, but we wanted to see the type of folks that were going to be joining us today. So I'll just give this 30 seconds or so, and we'll get an idea of who's all on the call today. Okay, I'm going to give this another 15 seconds. So please hit submit if you can. Okay, so it looks like we've got about 50 folks from adult education programs, and 19 folks from libraries, and 12 from other types of places, and one enrollment partner. Thank you so much, folks. It's great to get an idea of who all has joined us today. Right now, I'd like to hand things over to Susan Hildreth, who's going to do an intro for us today. And Heidi, I'm passing you control of the slides. Thank you.
Well, hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Susan Hildreth. I'm the director of the Institute of Museum and Library Services, and great to see all the folks on the webinar today. Welcome, and we're very excited to be talking about digital literacy, or digital readiness, which is a term that's often being used interchangeably with literacy and I think is really a positive term. We will share lots of great ideas and information on national initiatives, resources, and tools that public and school librarians, as well as our adult education partners, can use to enhance their digital literacy programming and services. And of course, it's really critical to have strong partnerships between our libraries and our local, regional, or state adult education programs. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the IMLS, Institute of Museum and Library Services, and the OCTAE, Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education partnership. And just before I go into that, just to mention, since we have a number of adult ed partners on the phone, the Institute of Museum and Library Services, IMLS, is the federal agency that provides funds for non-federal libraries and museums. So our primary activities are grant making. We provide population-based grants to all the states, as well as competitive grants to libraries and museums. And we do research, policy making, convening, and we really are the voice for the nation's libraries and museums here in Washington. So our partnership with OCTAE, I think it really began when the Survey of Adult Skills was issued in the fall of 2013. Now, some of you may remember this. It was issued at the time of the federal government shutdown. I remember it distinctly. I was one of the few federal employees that was on duty. And the report, I think, when it was issued, did not get the attention that it should have generated at the time because of the shutdown. But it certainly has gotten tons of attention. I don't want to suggest it didn't get attention, but I just remember there was so much other things going on at the shutdown, it didn't really pop then, but it certainly has now. The alarming results showing that the U.S. is not keeping up with international partners in adult skill development was just startling. And of course, we know the survey shows that 1 in 6 adults, or about 36 million Americans, have low literacy skills. And really, to address this challenging problem, I wanted to make sure that our federal colleagues at the Department of Education were aware of and leveraging the deep assets that support low-skilled youth and adults, including digital literacy programs in many of our public libraries across the country. So IMLS and OCTAE are really working together to encourage effective collaborations between libraries and federally funded adult education programs. This issue is really of national importance. The goal of our joint effort to enhance skills, employability, and the quality of life for everyone, particularly those with low literacy and digital literacy skills. It's so critical to effective workforce development and employment. So this summer, IMLS and OCTAE issued a Dear Colleague letter. So what is a Dear Colleague letter? For those of you out in the real world, that's DC speak for a call to action for libraries and adult education programs to work together at all levels. So it was very fortuitous to have this partnership in place when the Workforce Investment and Opportunity Act passed this summer, because we have a platform between these two organizations in place to support the WIA focus on workforce development. Also, one of the most important platforms or resources for effective digital literacy is robust broadband that is available to the public at individuals' homes, at their libraries, or on their own devices wherever they're using their devices. IMLS has supported broadband adoption for many years and has also supported the development of digital literacy curriculum and services. I hope everyone can mute their lines. That would be helpful. The IMLS partnership with the MacArthur Foundation that you will hear about later in the presentation supported the development of 24 learning labs in libraries and museums across the country that focus on digital media skills, particularly for at-risk youth. IMLS also was a founding partner with Everyone On and supported the development of their zip code locator tool that highlights the location of literacy services and programs in your communities based on your customers' or learners' zip code. So together, IMLS and OCTAE are making a difference for our communities, but staff on the ground really make it happen. and we want to make sure that you know how much we appreciate your work. Also, just quickly, it may come up in the questions, but in terms of WIA and other work together, we would encourage our libraries and their adult ed partners to work together. You can apply for competitive grants from IMLS for this important work, so please consider that, and our program officers would be happy to talk with you about grant opportunities from IMLS. So thanks for the good work you do, and please enjoy the webinar.
Thank you, Susan. And we know you're leaving the Institute soon, and wanted to express our appreciation for your leadership during your time there.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for being on today. So for all of you on the webinar, here's a question for you. You get your chat fingers warmed up. Tell us, what are your greatest technology challenges? With whatever you're doing, you're on a digital strategy webinar, so what are your challenges? And click send to everyone. While you're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and show you some topics that we're going to be covering. And I expect that we will see some of these words appear in some form in the chat window. We're already seeing some of them. Low skills, low access, capacity, lack of staff skills, I'm going to call that confidence, bandwidth, etc. So keep them coming, and we hope that some of what we share with you today will be useful. The words that are on the screen now are some words that refer to why adults are not online. And while cost is certainly part of the reason, and 19% of those surveyed for a Pew Internet and American Life study found that the price of computers, upkeep, internet service was part of the barrier, but it was no longer the primary reason that it had been in the 2000 survey. So that's interesting. Cost is not the only thing anymore that's keeping people from getting online. In the 2013 survey, 34% cited a lack of relevant content, 32% cited reasons relating to the perception that the internet is not easy to use or maintain securely, sort of a hassle factor, and only 7% cited lack of access or availability. So this webinar will give you some ideas of how to break down digital literacy strategies into component parts and try new ideas in your program or classroom. If we were doing this webinar or this presentation together, we call this presentation a bring your own device. So we could stop at several points and let you log into the sites that we share with you and try things and show your neighbor sitting next to you what you were learning. But since we're virtual, I guess it is a bring your own device, because you have, but you'll have to make this a build your own adventure experience and note which sites you'd like to try later. And I hope that each of you on the call will commit to trying one new thing out of this presentation with your learners. I'm going to look back at the chat and see some of the things. Smartphones, comfortable space at a comfortable level, low income, fear, older students, low English. All right, very relevant. Thank you for sharing all of those. So the first thing that we're going to break down is access. Digital strategies have to start with access, but what does it really mean? I'm going to turn this part of the presentation over to Susan's colleague, Sandy Toro.
Thank you, Heidi. So access can mean many things, and this list provides a few ways to think about access. There's internet, meaning wired and Wi-Fi, broadband, cell service. We have data and text cell phone plans, and unlimited data and text plans can open a new world of exploration without concern for overages. We have computer and printer. Some public access terminals, though, are not connected to a printer, so students can't leave with an artifact or a document. There's power and memory. Some public access terminals don't allow users to save anything, and that can be very frustrating to learn to work around. Projectors for classrooms. If you only have one computer in the class, how do you work together? You have to have a projector. And there's high-quality content. What are we providing the access to? Hopefully the content's engaging, adaptive, interesting, and challenging. Now with digital literacy training, you can't use what you don't understand, but digital literacy training is step number one, and it becomes important at many points in our digital learning. How did you learn your last new trick? Chances are you learned it with a colleague, with a teen, or with a grandchild, and it's important to note that we're all still learners. So next I'll talk a little bit about how IMLS and libraries are trying to fill the role of digital access and training in communities around the country. So when we think about the idea of digital inclusion, we're talking about the ability of individuals and groups to access and use information and communication technologies. We funded the Information Policy and Access Center at the University of Maryland and the American Library Association Office for Research and Statistics to develop a digital inclusion interactive map. So this is a data visualization tool that maps all the public libraries using a public library survey data file from 2011. And the tool overlays census data, including demographic, economic, health, and education data from the American Community Survey, or the ACS 5-year data set from 2007 to 2011. So selected data from participating libraries is also on the map and shows the roles that libraries play regarding digital inclusion in their communities. And I'll just note that the International City County Management Association and the ALA, or American Library Association Office for Information Technology Policy, serve as partners on that grant. So if you're familiar with it, in the report, Opportunity for All, How the American Public Benefits from Internet Access at U.S. Libraries, it was noted that 42%, or an estimated 32.5 million library computer users, indicated that education is the main reason they're online, and 24% of those users reported taking online courses or working on online assignments. And you'll just note at the top of this slide that there are over 16,000 public libraries in the U.S., and back in 2009, 77 million people used the library for computers and Wi-Fi access. So at IMLS, we've been working with librarians on digital inclusion, and I just want to point out some examples of what that looks like. So WebJunction, and you see a screenshot on the left, is an online learning community for librarians that promotes learning for all library staff. It was funded with a little over $450,000 from IMLS, and since 2003, WebJunction has helped more than 80,000 library staff build job skills. WebJunction offers webinars and courses, as well as information about competencies and resources for learners. So librarians can find documents, articles, handouts, web archives, and links to other online services and information, plus the latest news on everything from communication to digital inclusion to workforce services, E-rate, and web design. In 2011, we awarded another grant of around $250,000 to WebJunction for a project aimed at helping communities across the country with digital inclusion. The project complements our efforts to help libraries and other community-based organizations to make strategic decisions about providing public access to broadband. So working with partners, including TechSoup Global and the International City County Management Association, or ICMA, the OCLC's WebJunction started working on evaluating the needs of libraries, those community-based organizations, and city and county managers who were seeking to get started with digital inclusion. Using their findings, the partners created an action plan and have been providing resources online at WebJunction, TechSoup Global, and ICMA's Knowledge Network. So in addition to that, the partners are evaluating and publishing their outcomes and jointly reporting to us on project effectiveness and lessons learned. Another example you'll see on the right is an award that we made to Providence, Rhode Island's Public Library. So two of the largest public libraries in Rhode Island and committed statewide partners are being supported to demonstrate models and methods for integrating library, adult education, and workforce services through the library to support adults with low education, low English literacy, disabilities, or low digital literacy. their needs can't be met by the current workforce and adult education systems alone. All Access is designed to help adults overcome barriers to access and education and workforce services for all adults, develop, expand, and improve statewide resources for adult online learning and workforce development, and establish effective models to deliver and support education, as well as build a data-driven case for libraries' role in providing adult education and workforce services. Now, what does digital literacy education in the libraries look like? In school libraries, librarians can help children develop basic digital literacy competencies. In learning labs, which are in both libraries and museums, young adults can gain more advanced knowledge and skills for coding, digital storytelling, and game design. But what about adults? In general, libraries provide learning opportunities outside of the formal K-12 educational system, and computer classes and self-directed tutorials to use on-site or at home. For example, the District of Columbia Public Library offers a General Equivalency Diploma or GED Institute to help better prepare instructors who teach adults who struggle with preparing for the GED exam. Also, the Santa Ana Public Library, in partnership with an organization called History Pin, is working with new immigrant communities to increase digital literacy and provide learning in science, technology, engineering, and math through digital training in new media and digitization tools. Also, the Allele Museum, Public Library, and National Archives in the Republic of the Marshall Islands has an intergenerational digital literacy program for the island's aging population and youth. That library is paying for newly available fiber connectivity to bring higher bandwidth to library users to enhance their use of databases, e-books, online journals, and regularly scheduled virtual tours. Allele is also offering computer classes and book lending services at the local retiree center. One resource that's especially worth bookmarking is digitallearn.org, funded in part by the American Library Association and IMLS. This site has a wide collection of mini modules that students can use to learn targeted skills in very short time frames. These modules are helpful to tutors to use for learning, or for learners to use on their own. Digitallearn.org was created as a tool to support organizations that are increasing digital literacy and empowering learners. The beta site for digitallearn.org was launched March 21st, 2013, in conjunction with the launch of the Everyone On Ad Council campaign from Connect to Compete, and the full site launched at the American Library Association conference in June of 2013. This site delivers end-user resources so that organizations can meet the demand for just-in-time online e-learning and provides access to a community of practice for digital literacy trainers where people share resources and connect with others in the field. Digitallearn.org has surpassed all of their usage goals, and adoption continues to increase. So in their original grant, they proposed 10,000 unique visitors would visit in the first year. But during that first year, they had over 36,000, and they had over 66,000 in the 20 months since the beta site launched. All 50 states and Washington, D.C. have used the site, and there are over 1,800 total links to digitallearn.org coming from 160 different domains. Additionally, they had a goal for 1,000 class completions in the first year, but they actually had almost 6,000. And they've had 13,000 class completions in the 20 months since the beta site launched. This is just a selection of the available modules on basic digital literacy skills that range from 5 to 22 minutes. More modules in Spanish are being added, and I've heard that some in Chinese are possibly being added in the future. So thanks to Steve for posting the address there for www.digitallearn.org. And now I will turn it back to Heidi and Amber.
All right, thanks, Sandy. So as I challenged all of us at the beginning to try one new thing, why don't you just post in the chat window one thing that you heard from Sandy that you're going to check out later. It's always good when we make our goals public, right? All of those different ways to talk about access. So let's talk about affordability. Because cost does remain a barrier to digital access for many people, even though smartphones, someone wrote in, smartphones are making that a non-issue, but you still have to pay for the plan for a smartphone, right? So one way that OCTAE, my organization, is working to help adults and families break down these barriers is through promoting awareness of efforts such as EveryoneOn.org, which both Susan and Sandy have mentioned. So Amber Petty from Everyone On will talk us through what their program has to offer.
All right, thank you, Heidi. My name is Amber Petty. I work with Everyone On, and just to give a little background about what we do, we are a national nonprofit that's working to eliminate the digital divide by providing low-cost internet options to unconnected Americans. So we do this in a variety of ways. We leverage our partnerships with internet providers to get affordable options for our constituents. We have two types of offers, wired and wireless. Our wired offers are more targeted towards individuals who have families, who have students who are participating in the National School Lunch Program. And our wireless offers are open to anyone who's within our pre-qualified zip codes. The way we pre-qualify our zip codes is whether or not you live in a low-income zip code. We qualify that at 35,000. But a second way that we pre-qualify individuals is working with organizations such as OCTAE. For this, as you see in the top of the slide, you see www.everyone.org/adultEd. With this, they're able to pre-qualify anyone coming through their portal. So we work with a lot of nonprofits, school districts, housing authorities to get their constituents pre-qualified. Now, in terms of our offers, most of our offers are going to be around $10 a month with a setup cost of buying the router. The router usually costs around $40. In addition to our wireless and internet offers, we also try to provide discounted tablets, laptops, and desktop computers through some of our other partners. So we can move to the next slide quickly. Okay, so here this is an example of adult education's portal on our website. So as individuals sign up as enrollment partners, they get their own logins and they're able to sign people up under their own site. So someone would type in their zip code and they would click Find Offers. And they would be prompted to answer a few questions and then immediately find out which offers are available in their location. Yeah, so this is an example of the offers you would get. These are two of our more popular offers. Our Mobile Beacon offer, which is $10 a month, and unlimited data, and you would just have to pay for the router. And then our Freedom Pop offer, which is actually completely free, just having the cost of the router. This is more useful for those who are just being introduced to have a high usage rate. It gives you 1 gig, it's completely free, and it's perfect for people who are just signing up. So these are some of our computer offers, because we recognize that having a device is often a barrier as well. So here we have a few of our offers, but most range from 162 might be the high end for a desktop computer, but we definitely have some that are lower, and then laptops are around between $150 and $200. And then we recently added tablets as more people are moving to the tablet platform. So the third way that we're helping to close the digital divide is by linking people with classes that will help them to gain the skills they need to be digitally literate. So for this, we offer on our site for libraries to sign up as a training location. With this, they'll put in their hours, the classes they offer, any contact information, and then as people are signing up for internet service, based on their zip code, we'll recommend which libraries would be near them so they can go to the classes. So here you're seeing a few locations in DC that we have. Also, I saw on our chat that many people talked about language being a barrier. Our site is available in Spanish, as are most of the sites we link to through our Knowledge Center. So if they're looking for a resource for, let's say, online banking, most of the sites will link under our online banking platform will be available in Spanish as well. So I'm going to thank you for your time and pass it back over to Heidi.
Thank you, Amber. I think you're going to get some emails. I see people asking how to learn more. So Amber's email is on the last slide. So we'll get there, and she's available to help you understand what's available in your area. Let's move on to the hassle factor, the ease of use. It isn't so easy, is it, to set up your own home network or bring something new into a classroom. As we mentioned earlier in the 2013 Pew survey, this barrier is growing. Making a good choice about a device or a data plan to purchase or setting up and maintaining a home security network isn't easy, and some of you mentioned that already in the chat window. So for this, I'm turning it back to Steve Kwan at World Ed, who's going to talk to us about setting up a bring your own device learning environment.
Okay, Heidi, thank you very much. I won't be answering specific questions about setting up your own environment, but I will be talking about bringing your own device, BYOD. Many of our adult education programs really don't have the capacity to provide a one-to-one or an in-classroom laptop computer program. And so allowing students to bring and use their own device can really go a long way towards bringing technology into the learning environment. For example, wireless routers from everyone on can help turn a classroom into a wired learning environment. But there are a few considerations to this BYOD approach. Some of the pros include that people that are familiar with their own device, their own laptop, their tablet, their smartphone, and so that makes it easy for some people to use, and then for students to continue that work that they've done in class from home or another location, and thereby accelerating the learning that's gone on in class. There's also really little or no need to provide equipment because it's bring your own device, and that will keep some of the costs down. And any space at all really can create a digital learning environment, not just the computer lab anymore. So you have some flexibility there. All of these and others are really compelling reasons to try this BYOD approach. Students do not all need to have the same device, however. Even when students pair up, it's really quite successful, especially for ESOL, I know that was mentioned earlier, because there's a lot of communication that goes on if they're sharing a device. And even if it's just talking about the device being similar or different than their peers. However, there are some cons to this approach, and you as the teacher may need some specialized tech help, at least to start. And that some devices may be incompatible with some of the soft or hardware, and not all the sites render exactly the same on different devices, so students may be seeing things slightly differently. Wireless connectivity is not always so robust as we would sometimes hope, as it is hardwired, and there may be some additional security concerns that your program network might need, and so it would be important to talk with the person in charge of technology, the administrator in charge of technology. I'm not going to be answering technical questions here, but thank you very much, and I'll turn this over to Heidi.
All right, thanks, Steve. So we encourage you to try a bring your own device day and afternoon, a small taste, something that's manageable for you and doesn't stress you out. Go into it knowing that it will be a stressor and it will test your patience, but try it and see how it goes. We've done a lot of professional development through links as a bring your own device, and in the last few years they've been very successful. So I think we're getting there. We're getting closer to making that a reality. And always be willing to call on people in the room. Somebody might know what you don't. It's a good, humbling experience. Let's move on to relevance. The lack of perceived relevance was another barrier people report as keeping them from going online. And this may seem counterintuitive to some of us. There's so much, but it really was something that has remained in the surveys. I want you to take a moment to answer the question that's in the gray box here on the left. How do you find good content for supplemental and self-study for your learners? Take a minute there and maybe we'll generate a list of 70 good ideas of how to connect our students with good content. And they're already coming in. Thank you. So the good news and the bad news is that the internet is so rich. You can find information about anything, or can you? Effective searching is becoming the critical skill in order to get search returns that are on target. This is as true for us as teachers and researchers as it is for students. So I'm struck by a quote from this report that's referenced here that says much good content remains largely invisible to students. Why is that? Why are our students not connecting to the rich learning content that's on the web? We have to help get our students connected to the wealth of information that they could be using to learn in and out of the classroom. We know we don't have students enough time. So let's look at a few things here. Peers and Google and Twitter, through links, thank you, from each other, Tumblr, learning about search and search engines from Digio, program staff. Awesome. Thank you, everybody. These are all good ideas that we need to share with our learners, right? Help our learners get connected. This slide shows a screenshot from Bookshare.org. OCTAE is working with Benetech, which is the company that runs Bookshare, with Benetech to inform youth and adult students with visual, physical, and learning disabilities that they may be eligible for no-cost membership to the Bookshare service. Bookshare membership offers access to digital text that is delivered in custom formats such as audio, customizable text, and digital braille, reading software that facilitates study with annotations, a dictionary, spell check, and pronunciation guide, and access to a digitized library of over 300,000 materials. Bookshare is funded in part by the Department of Education through the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitation Programs, a few floors down from me. And the program addresses the critical aspect of timely access to print for student success in academic and occupational settings. This service, we're going to be working on communicating how students can get involved, but I want to bring it to your attention for students with disabilities. The internet is full of reading for students who have dyslexia or who have visual impairments. Lots of good videos, but they don't always help those with visual impairments. So trying to get students connected to accessible materials. Another very relevant piece of activity for students is job search. Sandy shared earlier how many adults use the libraries for job searches. Our adult ed students, but also adults who are not in our classes. And this freely available site that's referenced here, myjobscout.org, was field tested in the California Library Literacy System. It's designed for low-skilled readers in English and in Spanish. Thank you, everyone, for continuing to ask us about Spanish and other languages. It offers a wealth of features to assist with searches, including no-cost access to job listings. They're pulled off of Monster and Craigslist and all sorts of sort of community bulletin boards that list jobs. A no-cost portfolio so that you can save your listings and your resume. I know that we mentioned not being able to save things on like a public access computer was a hassle earlier, but you can save in this portfolio. Digital literacy tutorials, similar to the ones that Sandy shared from Digital Learn. They're very short, very focused. How do I learn to use this one thing? There's a social media platform so you can connect with others, and they reward progress with badges, which is fun. Another piece, and many of you shared this earlier, was confidence. The way it got shared in the chat earlier was staff competence, staff confidence using the material, fear, etc. And confidence comes with practice, 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 and solving multiple problems that come up. So we're all always building our confidence with technology as it continues to change. Just when you thought you knew something, right, the platform has changed. So let's talk about that a little bit. We're switching now, right, to think about ourselves as practitioners and our own confidence to do more with technology for our students. The link site, which has been mentioned before, and I'm sure Steve is going to put it up in the chat window, is one place where you can grow your own confidence and your teachers' confidence. At Links, you can find 16 topical community groups where you can discuss issues with peers and experts. There's a collection of vetted and reviewed resources organized into 16 topical categories, and it's a good place to start when you're looking for resources for yourself or your students. At the Links Learning Portal, you can find 17 self-paced, no-cost courses in topics such as career pathways, adult ESL, integrating technology, and learning to achieve. This set is how to serve students with learning disabilities. And there are other topics as well, science, for example, and we're adding courses on a regular basis. So check those online courses out. There are also some facilitated courses that are offered in cooperation with states or programs that you might have heard about. All of the courses offer certificates of completion if you're collecting those sorts of things to meet your continuing education requirements. We can encourage you to sign up at Links. It's free, and you can be connected with a lot of resources and peers. This is one course that I wanted to show you. It's called Integrating Technology in the Adult Ed Classroom. And you can see what a course looks like when you get to Links. This is in the Links Moodle. Many of you may have a Moodle or have taken a Moodle course. This is a self-paced course, and it will provide you with a solid understanding of how and what to integrate with many links to new resources and ideas to try tomorrow. It's all about what you're trying to teach, how to use technology to teach what you're trying to teach. It's closely linked to the community of practice through reflection questions, so you'll be able to raise questions and engage in group discussion even though you're not taking the course as a cohort. This is freely available to you, and we welcome all of you to check out that course. We're going to change a little bit, again, to planning and extending. So given what you know now, and because you've signed up and you're using one of your precious December afternoons, thank you for joining us in this conversation about digital literacy, I assume that you want to do more with your digital strategy. I want to share with you a tool that we've developed at OCTAE to help with this. We've talked about so many aspects of digital literacy, but what are you going to do? How do you direct your limited energy and resources? This tool, called the Who's Online Where Index, or better as WOW, has taken into consideration many of the aspects we've talked about to create a digital, data-driven tool for your use. The tool consists of a short report on the state of connectedness among the adult ed target population, links to available data sets that can help determine connectivity, vignettes of digital strategies in various locations, and a fully developed index for the state of Ohio, which includes all the data sets that I mentioned by county and the accompanying maps to illustrate the power of putting all these data points together in sort of a layer, and an Excel workbook with instructions and embedded formulas so you can make your own index. Now, the data points for the index are listed here on the screen. What you end up doing is constructing an Excel sheet or a map that can make visible which areas are most likely to be able to support technology-enabled expansion of adult ed services because there's enough need, enough broadband coverage, and or public access points at community anchor institutions. And it just gives you a way to think about and plan and be strategic about your digital strategies. The link to this tool is on the last slide. So we will get there, and I welcome your use of it. We've published it in beta, and we're very much welcoming input from people who've tried it. And we wouldn't be the Department of Ed if we didn't share some research with you. And so we have a section here on what do we know about adult learning that makes digital learning such an important component of what we do with our adult students. We know that what makes a quality learning experience for youth and adults includes a lot of these concepts that are listed on this slide here. To be active refers to hands-on, experimental, authentic, project-based, problem-based learning, words that you have all heard before. Deep refers to constructing and creating content, not just consuming it, but creating content and learning how to apply strategies. Social refers to blended and interactive models, including dialogue with peers and facilitators, mentors, coaches, learning communities, so that students are articulating in their own words, in their own voice, what they're learning. It's so critical for all of us to learn how to ask for help, learn where to ask for help. It's a big part of being self-directed. Personalized here does not mean independent and locked in your own room. It means being adaptive and targeted through learning analytics and diagnostic assessments, remediating specific gaps and accelerating where I'm strong as a student. Contextualized means that the learning is tied to something immediately and deeply relevant to the student, a problem, a project, a family issue, or an occupational training. Trial and error, we're all humans. After all, we're mammals, and we learn through trial and error. It's a personal process, and you have to experience it for yourself. You can't just show someone how to do it. They have to do it themselves, which leads to the next one, which is practice. Practice refers to understanding that skills require practice to get to a level of fluency. There is no shortcut. To move a skill out of working memory, where you're still talking yourself through every step or using a checklist, into fluency and long-term memory, it has to be practiced dozens and dozens of times. And if we share one thing with students, please share that with your students. They probably are not reading the brain-based research like we are. They need to know it's all about practice. It's not that some people were born knowing how to do it. Practice, practice. So I wanted to share with you a few very practitioner-friendly research briefs that are based, for the most part, on longer work that we could recommend that you understand and share with your colleagues as a way to learn about learning. So I'll give you just a little taste about each one of these, and the link to them is on the next slide, so you don't have to capture this. So this first one, Education for Life and Work, summarizes a book by the National Academies of Science that looked at how to teach and learn 21st century competencies, which they discuss as cognitive, interpersonal, and intrapersonal knowledge and skills. Sometimes these latter two are called non-cog skills, or more popular recently as grit. This brief also discusses deeper learning, which it describes as developing transferable knowledge. And isn't that what we want all our students to learn? There we go. Supporting learning and motivation. This little 3-part booklet is drawn out of a book-length report also by the National Academies of Science called Improving Adult Literacy Instruction. The short report is for practitioners and speaks to instructional designs that are supportive, methods to build intrinsic motivation and persistence among adult learners, and technology features that support these pedagogies. That one's a good one. Here's another good one. This is student voice, and as you can imagine, and as I just mentioned, voice is strongly related to many of the key learning terms. This little article is a great read. It's very approachable, and it is guaranteed to make you think about how you're managing and running your class or program and how much leadership you're allowing from your students. Fueling the Race is a report on prior learning assessments, or PLA. The authors looked at 62,000 students in 48 institutions, mostly community college, in this multi-year study. Findings show that students who had some credits that they got through prior learning assessments had better academic outcomes, higher graduation and persistence rates, and they took less time to degree. So it really shows us that honoring and giving credit to students for what they already know is a huge boost in post-secondary education and a concrete way to personalize their learning trajectory. And one more makes 5. This one is from the Stanford Center for Opportunity Policy in Education. It has very practical suggestions about how to use technology to support struggling learners and why struggling learners need their own device. So let me say a little bit about this since we've talked about access, affordability, relevance, and confidence. Students from low-income families, our students for the most part, are likely not to have had their own device for as long as students from middle and upper-income families, where one-on-one computing with super fast internet speeds is the norm. In terms of time on practice and trial and error with digital learning, our adult education students are usually way, way behind. They just haven't had their hands on the devices. In fact, I heard of a study that's just coming out that found the same thing with 13-year-olds. Those from low-income families where there was one or no home computer lagged behind in digital savvy than their peers. It's so obvious. You and I have learned so much in the years that we've had our hands on a computer, all sorts of things like how to manage our email, keep track of things to read later, how to enlarge the font, or customize the desktop, keyboard shortcuts that we use now without thinking about it, and on and on. All of those terms about learning could also apply to this topic, the active, deep, social, etc. Students need their own devices as soon as possible so they can be active, go deep on topics that engage them, connect to their social network and grow a new one around their learning, customize and contextualize their learning, and get lots and lots of practice that they're missing or they have missed. So all of these are, oh, not the next slide, now they're on the next slide, but I wanted to show you, many people say, well, where do I keep up with what's going on in digital literacy? And this blog, managed by Steve Kwan, is a great one, Tech Tips for Teachers. It's a great place to watch for digital literacy updates and timely tips for integrating technology into your instruction. There's a nice blog on there about Job Scout, for example, where you could go to learn more. So bookmark this one, and I'm going to switch to the next slide. And before we open for questions, you can type in one more thing about what you plan to do, some other thing that you want to do with your students. Here are all the resources, and as Steve said, or I guess Ben said, these will be coming to you. And Steve and Ben, I'm going to let you try and help us find the questions that are buried in this wonderful, rich chat box.
Okay, Heidi, thanks. Some of the ones that I saw might have been answered by Amber. There was one about tech support on Everyone On, and folks can might have seen that. And there was another one that I don't know if Amber or somebody else might have answered on, and feel free, folks, if you have other questions or if we didn't catch something to repeat it. There was another one on whatever happened to community technology centers across the country that once met this need of accessibility. I think that's when the question was asked.
Yeah, this is Amber from Everyone On. I'm just going to follow up for people who didn't see my response to the tech support question. Most of our devices are very simple by design to be set up. Pretty much plug them in and you're good to go. But we do provide instructions for our enrollment partners and train them so that they're able to train people who come in through their system. But also if someone needs any extra help, depending on what offer they've decided to go with, they would just call into our IVR support number and be transferred to a tech support staff. So we do offer tech support on several fronts.
Do we have some other questions?
There was a question from Andrea that was just asked, saying there are a number of libraries offering online high school diplomas. Do you know what the completion or retention is for these students?
This is Heidi, and I'll take that one. No, I don't, but it's a great question. There are several companies now offering online high school studies. So I encourage you to look with your students and send an email to the Contact Us link to try and get some of your questions answered. Help them be savvy consumers. Some of them have a
Amber, there's one, if zip code isn't identified as an area of Everyone On, is there somewhere to contact to inquire about its inclusion?
Yeah, so as I stated before, we qualify zip codes by whether or not they were low income according to the census report. But if someone is not in a low income area but still wants to qualify for the offers, that's where our enrollment partners get in. So say you didn't live in a low income zip code, but you still came in through Everyone On /adult ed, you would still be qualified for those offers, provided there's coverage in your area. But feel free to send me an email if you have questions about a specific zip code that's for some reason not showing up, and we'll get it settled.
And here's another one. Teachers, especially with low tech skills, need time to learn and practice that they don't have. Any thoughts about this?
I'll try and tackle that one. It's so right. One thing that we're trying to do is we have pre-qualified our teachers for the Everyone On deals. We know that teachers cannot integrate technology into their classroom if they're not confident doing it and using the technology themselves. We know that a lot of our teachers are not tech savvy or tech confident. So getting technology in their own homes where they can learn all the things that we said about our students, it applies to us too, right? They need to get on and have relevant content. They need their own device. They need to go deep on the things that they are interested in, get a lot of practice, poke around, find the things that will jazz them and help them learn the tech skills. So I don't want to say that they should learn everything out of their paid time, but there's a lot to technology that you have to learn on your own time because it has to be relevant to you and it has to be when you're not stressed. There's only so much that you can learn when you go to a professional development event and someone's showing you how to do it. So one thing that we're trying to help with is offering professional development through links. The course I mentioned is one thing. There are also face-to-face trainings that happen in states requested by the state directors of adult education. The other links partners are on the line. You can find them at links.ed.gov. So we do offer professional development, but we also have pre-qualified teachers for the low-cost deals from Everyone On and are really happy to be able to say that.
Heidi, are there any comparative studies that show, I think this is for Heidi, that show retention rates for students enrolled in ESL, GED programs in libraries versus adult ed centers. It may also be for Sandra or Susan.
I don't think there are, but another good question.
And by the way, we will be sending a PowerPoint, as Ben said in the beginning, with the links. Yes, I know those were flying by, so we'll provide a document for that. Are there funds available to provide for students to take the online tests?
That's really a municipal or statewide question. And there are various municipal efforts. And if they're not, I'm giving you the idea to maybe start questioning why not in your area. That wouldn't be something that comes from the feds. The other thing that I want to say about municipal efforts is everyoneon.org is great, and it's nationwide. Where there is service, that's always the caveat. I know early on in the chat people said, well, I'm in a remote area. So rural, remote areas are still a challenge. But there are other municipal and statewide efforts to connect Americans who are not connected to the internet. So we encourage you to look up other efforts in your area and see if you can't get your students involved.
And let's see, how long does it take to get access to everyone on, everyone on?
Hi, yeah, so if you're signing up for one of our wired offers, it usually takes around 10 days just because they have to send out the technician to install it. If you're signing up for a wireless offer, we usually mail it out to you within 7 would be the highest business days, 3 to 7 business days, and it's easy setup, so you'll be able to set it up on your own and you'll be good to go.
And here's one. I'm not sure if it was answered previously. Are there digital learning resources made for the ESOL community with pictorial instructions? I think that might be for Digital Learn. It came up at that point.
Well, and Digital Learn does have modules in Spanish, and Sandy gave us a hint that they may be coming in Mandarin. Job Scout is fully in Spanish. Everyone on is in Spanish. I know that the question was about pictorials. I'm not sure. Maybe someone else in the chat can post some things. Given the depth of interest in connecting ESL students to digital literacy, let me say one thing. We do have a project running right now through the American Institute for Research called ESL Professional Development, and it is creating materials and professional development to help those teachers who have students who are ESL students. And I'm not saying adult ESL teachers anymore because we know non-native speakers are in all of our classes, right? So for all of us, we are creating new materials to help you get those students digitally literate. So watch for that on links. Those will be coming out next year. There'll be courses and fact sheets and lots of links to all of these materials. So even though I can't answer today, I think something very good is coming. And I'll convey the interest to the development team.
Heidi, is Bookshare open to any adult with LD or vision impairments, or only those enrolled as students?
And I see that Marcy Groot is on from Bookshare, so I'm going to use her response. The way people are covered in Bookshare is through a special law under the copyright law. So you have to prove with, I don't want to say recent diagnostic, but with diagnostic testing, you have to show that you have been diagnosed with a learning disability or a vision impairment, and then we can start working. You can't just sign up and affirm that you have a disability. So write to me, and we'll start working that issue. Thank you for all the interest. I see a lot of interest in the chat. Ben's
informed me that surprisingly, passed on all the questions, or at least we think so. So if your question wasn't answered and you want to repost it, we may have missed it as things went flying by. But as it stands right now, unless we see one come in, all the questions have been asked and answered.
All right. Well, I see one that we didn't get to.
Oh, thank you.
But someone in the chat did answer, which is great,
right.
which is
Left
what we have
out.
here learning.
Yeah.
Looking at virtual learning classes for professional development, and suggest again that you check out the online courses on links.ed.gov because they're there, they're self-access, they're open to you, and you can learn anytime, anywhere, and get a certificate of completion.
Okay, are there new grants available for creating digital literacy content?
And I don't know if Susan Hildreth is back on yet.
She is,
she did.
From what I understand anyway.
Well, yeah, I am here, and there are certainly grants available through IMLS, primarily. Well, we have two main sources that could be considered, the Laura Bush 21st Century Grant Program or the National Leadership Grant Program. So we do have funding available, and I would just encourage you to check with us on that. We have at least one, if not two, opportunities every year for applications. So I know Sandy had to leave the call, but Sandy Toro, our program officer, could really help anyone who needed further information on that, or check out our resources at imls.gov.
Well, question for Heidi.
Let me add one thing onto that. Two of the resources that we shared today were developed with funding from the American Library Association. So I'd put that to you as well.
Would OCTAE consider making an LMS, a learning management system, available to all of adult ed?
I'm not sure that we're allowed to do it, but I can say that we are using, in our links portal, we are using open source software. We are running a Moodle, which is open source, on top of open source code called the National National Training and Education Resource, pardon me. And I'll put the URL in the chat box. It's open source as well. It's a course sharing platform, and it was one that was recommended to all of the TACT grantees. I don't know if you know about the TACT grantees. There's probably one in your region because there were some in every state. That was the Trade Adjustment Act Community College Career and Technical Education grant project that ran on $2 billion with a B, $2 billion given to community colleges to develop courseware and help students get through some early workforce development courses. So there should be a lot of courses coming out on the Enter Learning platform that will be open source. So we encourage you to be looking at open source and open ed resources, certainly not reinventing the wheel. So I'm going to put the Enter URL in the chat.
And this might be to both Susan and Heidi. What's the best place to keep up? Links, OVE, other mailing lists?
Mm-hmm. Susan, you want to plug your blog?
Yeah, right. We do have an IMLS blog that comes out regularly. It's regarding all kinds of topics, not just working with skill development for adults, but I know you've had some discussion about digitallearn.org, which is a site that we supported the creation of and is still ongoing. So that's another site where I would say, although it's not, directly currently supported by IMLS, there's always new content on digitallearn.org. So I would encourage you to subscribe to that to get constant updates.
That's great. And OCTAE also has a blog that publishes regularly and a newsletter that comes out every other week. You can sign up for both of those, and we'll put the URL to do so in the chat window. Links is a steady friend. It publishes more regularly than OCTAE Connection newsletter or the blog. So pick your level of connection, and there's plenty of ways to stay involved.
Okay, are the IMLS grants for the adult education community, are there other grants available too?
You mean through well, just to clarify the question, IMLS has a number of grants available for all types of activities. And I would also encourage, particularly the adult education folks on the webinar, to check in and see what's going on at their state library, or sometimes it's called a state library agency in their states, because IMLS provides funding annually to the state libraries. There are 50 of them around the country, and our territories as well. And one of the key priorities that the states could use those funds for, those federal funds, are development of adult literacy and workplace skills. So I would encourage the adult ed community to check in and see how their state library, if they do make those funds available. Many of them do make funds available competitively at the state level as well as the federal.
That's great, and there's something in the chat from the California Library system, so thank you. We know that the California State Library is a huge system.
Here's one. I don't know if Amber's still there, but does everyone on allow connection of more than one device?
Oh, yeah, I'm still here. So we do. There are 3 types of modems that you can purchase. I believe the one we showed in the slide was a USB connection, and that's a mobile connection that only connects one device. But we do have the hotspot and the hub, which are both pretty mobile and can connect 8 to 10 devices.
Great, thank you, Amber. And there was one, again, we will be sending out the information on your participation after a follow-up email. So you'll get the information in an email from us. Let's see, Ben, I may have lost, to see if there's anything else you see or anyone else. Other check, yep. I can't see other questions, but maybe I missed one.
I don't see any more questions. There was just a little post from Lena and some other folks, but I think we've addressed the major questions. If we haven't, folks, please type quickly and we'll try to get to them.
And it looks like Digital Learn is the top place that people are going to go next, so that's fantastic. You will find little modules that you and your students can learn from in a heartbeat. It's really great. And someone else recommended GCFlearnfree.org. That's a great one as well.
It's being asked again, does everyone receive all information given and validation of participation? And there isn't a certificate. There'll be an email that you'll get from us, and it'll include the information, PowerPoint, a PDF, and the links.
And the link to an evaluation. So we hope that you all let us know how this worked for you and what you need next. What other kinds of webinars would be helpful to you. I'm making a little list here, and certainly resources for ESL learners is on it.
Yes, and the webinar will be archived for people. There'll be a link to the recording, so you'll also be able to not only get the PowerPoint, but the actual recording that you can pass on to folks. If you have registered, you will get the information sent. You will get the email sent to you. Okay.
So if that's all, let's let you go back to your holiday holiday work. I know everyone is so busy, and we really appreciate your time today and your work with this population of low digital literacy adults and youth. Let's get them connected and send them on their way to become peer learners for others.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation. This has been great.